Good morning. Right now we're going to talk about building cross sections. So we're going to you're all going to do a building cross section, and there's lots of different types depending on what's going on. So we're going to show you a few. We're going to talk about what's going on here, and we're going to show you the worksheet. In fact, the worksheet's what's up in front of us right now. The worksheet basically consists of this. I want you to go through and make sure all this is in your notes. We want to talk about all the bits and pieces, and a lot of the stuff we've already talked about. So as I'm looking at this is a typical wall section. And in fact, here's another version of it. But this is for a slab on grade with a CMU, concrete masonry unit wall, so cinder block. So as I'm looking at this, I can see my footing down here, and I can see the rebar in it. I can see the depth that's required. I can see the notes that are attached to it. That's pretty much all a cross section is. It's the only real spot in a set of plans where the builder sees how things are supposed to be assembled, at least vertically. So as I'm looking at this is where we see things like, what's the grade line? How much grade do we have to have? What's the slope going away? How thick is the concrete slab supposed to be? How big is the footing supposed to be? We even talk about termite protection in it. So in all honesty, these are all things that have to be considered and have to be done as you're doing this. So as I'm looking at this is a basic one. So I'm going to move this over and show you a couple other versions of it. Okay. So right here, I've got one that's a thickened slab on grade, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And we'll start right down here at the bottom like we did with the um, not the cross section, with the foundation plan the other day. So the foundation goes in like this, and these little circles right here where my cursor's at represent rebar through this. And then you've got a welded wire mesh that runs through it. This is dashed line here. You've got your J hooks going down into it. It talks to you about what's the minimum requirements for the concrete. Machine compaction is going on here for the inside of the wall. You got a vapor barrier that has to be laid down 6 mil. Okay, that's a term you need to become familiar with. A mil is a thousandth of an inch, so 6 mil is 6 thousandths of an inch. That's basically your normal visqueen or other plastic, heavy-duty industrial like plastic sheeting. 4-inch concrete slab with a 6x6 welded wire mesh, 4x4. All right, those are your basic notes there. Your finished grade. Notice the finished grade slopes away from the building. Has to. In fact, depending on where you're at, the slope changes. In our area, we require a 1 in 10 slope for the first 10 feet. After that, it can go to nearly flat, but you've got to have a slope away from the house. Also, this is requiring an 8-inch minimum clearance from the top of the finish of the dirt to where the finished floor would be. Then we got some stucco notes, hold up stucco from ground. There's your wood trim. In fact, if I zoom right in, there's your coving or your baseboard in your house. Shows you all the pieces that have to go in there, and it literally is meant to do that. As I proceed up the wall, I can see my my precast sills. I can see my lintel posts. I can see my fascia, my soffit. Now, soffit, as we talked about in class, is a horizontal surface on a ceiling, roof, whatever, that actually covers up framing, conceals framing, etc., etc., etc. We even go in and we talk about the aluminum drip edge on the fascia. That's actually here, and this is kind of a different version of it than I've seen. Usually, we just draw them in as a slope off because this actually would act as a dam right there. I don't know why that one's drawn like that, but it goes up under your shingles. In fact, look, notice your shingles are actually drawn in on this one. You've got your sheathing, you got your fascia board right here. All of this that's attached to the tails of your rafters or trusses, and it just keeps going all the way up the house and shows you everything that's got to be in there. Now, this note here, this one's left blank right now. Usually, it's the slope of the roof, and it's always a 12 base, 12 run, and then this is the rise that goes right here. So as I look at that, I can see what it's supposed to be. Now, this requires, as I'm looking at this stuff, I see the slope. I can come back down here and say, okay, well, I got my uplift anchors. You have to have anchors to hold your roof on. Notice I got some blanks here for this is a generic one to be filled in. 1/2-inch blank sheathing. That could be OSB or plywood. With blank mile per hour nail patterns. So the nail pattern is going to change, and that's going to be in our detail sheets. We'll talk about in a little bit. So basically, keep your shingles from flying off in the wind. 15-pound felt. That's not a hashtag. That's a pound. 26 gauge flashing as per, that's a requirement there. Standard there. So as we walk our way up through the house, we look at all these pieces and we know what's going on there. That's a simple one. Let's look at another one. Here's a different typical wall. This is a little more complicated. Starting down here at the bottom, again, we've got our footing. Oops, trying to highlight this as a whole group. So we still got our footing. We got all the notes that go with that. We've got concrete slabs. We've got a sump pump, pit if required, detailed in. Here's a thickened slab for a bearing wall in the middle of the building right here. If I go up, yep, it's got a lolly column here, steel tube column. Drop girder, yep. So we got a beam here in the middle of the house. As I continue up, we still got, notice where the brick comes down, it goes to below level. And this doesn't tell you what your pitch, well, it does, 1 in 12, but it's not much of a slope there. So we just keep going up the house. We can see all the bits and pieces. This has actually got a double mud sill. Okay, two 2x6s for the mud sill. You can actually see the J-bolt right there. It's the blue dotted line. If I hover over it, it's going to try to highlight everything for us. We got cross bridging on these. Cross bridging is what you can see right here. This is cross bridging. Basically keeps those floor joists from wobbling back and forth horizontally out in the middle ever. That's kind of important unless you want your stuff to wobble. It's got 1/2-inch sheetrock lines, and I don't like the way they did this because they've got horizontal and vertical arrows. In my opinion, you should never have a horizontal or vertical. But as I continue up the house, you've got brick ledges, you've got brick ties shown in the walls, you've got the sill shown, and then it slopes away, and then it's got to be framed up a little differently or stacked a little differently by the mason. So as I keep going up the house, I can see every bit and piece in this building, and that's the important part here, is that you can see it. I mean, you can even see this king beam at the top of the wall, and you can see the wrap on the top. You can see all the shingles, you can see the gutter on the house, you can see all of it. Now, there's no downspout, but yeah, if you got a gutter, you're going to have a downspout somewhere, unless you really want to make a mess, I guess. And then let's look at one more. Here's another one. This is a little differently. It's been broken up a little bit different. It's got a couple of variations in it. It shows the footing, how to space it, how thick things have to be. This one's got the masonry stuff coming down. This is the block on the outside of the house coming right down to the ground itself. It's got a ledge sitting there. You can't ever stack brick in the air. I mean, come on. How do you hang a brick in the air and hope it stays there? So as I'm looking through this, I can see all my insulation, all my framing, all my soffit materials. I can see everything that's got to go in it. And that's really what a cross-section is supposed to do. When you draw your house properly, especially if you're using a BIM software, it will actually make the cross-section pretty much for you. When you put in a cross-section marker like we use in ArchiCAD or in Revit, when you put those markers in, if you've used the right walls and the right materials, all of this becomes just automatic. So we want to make sure this is what you know and what you're looking for, but we don't have to make you draw it right now. We just got to make sure that if you're using that BIM software, you're putting your walls together properly. So that's really all I needed from you for today, and on this edition. So I'll let you get back to work. We'll talk about details and show you a details video real soon. Bye.